So let's get it to the time. To how I got the name Tony the Rockstar and how I became real popular. Amongst the ladies, you know what I mean? So you know how I do, just follow the story, man. So anyway, so as y'all should know by now, I was doing my thing in Dallas, getting hustling, getting money. Even though I was from New York, I was really getting money out in Dallas and shit. And, my name was still, ringing back in New York, even though I wasn't in New York for a few years. My name was ringing even back in New York, so much so to where, at the time, rest in peace, DJ K. Slay, he reached out to me, DJ K. Slay is, not only a DJ and a mixtape DJ and a radio personality, not only he's a legendary, like I said, mixtape DJ and radio personality from New York, but he's just a legend, period. Like, most motherfuckers from New York to LA to the South know who DJ K. Slay is, because DJ K. Slay also is the owner and creator of Rockstar magazine. So K. Slay reached out to me, he DM'd me on Instagram. He's like, yo, what up, man? He said, I wanted to know if I could get an interview with you, because, I know you from New York, you from Queens or whatever, but I see you really doing your thing out of town. I'm hearing things about you. You know what I mean? He was like, he wanted to interview me for Rockstar magazine. And I said, well, ain't your magazine for like models and rappers? He was like, yeah, but it's also for like street niggas. He's like, we also have a part in my magazine where you interview some street niggas doing their thing. He was like, you ain't gotta like, say what you into it, and he's like, nothing illegal, but just, show that you're doing your thing, getting money, you know what I mean? And I'm like, alright. And then I told him, well, we could do that. I was like, I also got an artist down here. I told him about Platinum. I said, sure, why not? We could do, an interview for the magazine. So you're like, cool. So that's when K. Slay and me, we exchanged contact, and no numbers or whatever. And then he texted me and said, well, he gonna be in Houston at a certain day and time, because he's interviewing Bun B, because Bun B's gonna be on the cover. And he was like, once he's done interviewing Bun B and shooting Bun B for the cover, he'll come down to Dallas, being that it's right there, and he'll interview me, and all that, you know what I mean? So I'm like, alright, cool. So, me and K. Slay, agreed to a certain day and time to where K. Slay gonna come down and interview me for Rockstar magazine or whatever. So, of course I'm hyped, because Rockstar magazine, that's big, not only in New York, but all over the world, And I knew not only would that bring me exposure, but I knew that would bring exposure to my nigga Platinum, in his music, so cool. So it's coming close to the day, for K. Slay, come interview me. So of course, I went shopping, gathered, all toys and all my cars, I had like 4 or 5 cars, at the time, plus some motorcycles. So I wanted all that to be seen, Of course I had the Lamborghini, BMW, motorcycle, Aston Martin, I had, so that's like 4 cars. Plus I wanted Platinum to bring out his, red Corvette, couple other toys, most of the cars are red and shit. I had Flame bring the Range Rover through, So boom, so now K. Slay comes through. When K. Slay come through, he got Sub-Zero with him, aka DJ Deep Freeze, Sub-Zero from Sub-Zero D with D. So now I'm tripping, I'm like, oh shit, because Sub-Zero, once again is a legend, to niggas like, to me in New York, Sub-Zero got the, he got the Sub-Zero DVD plus Fat Puff magazine, so I'm hyped, but, so I'm like, yo, Sub-Zero, what you doing here? He was like, he was a cameraman for K. Slay, you know what I mean? He was like, so K. Slay told me that, they just interviewed Bun B. Bun B's gonna be on the cover, and he wanna interview me. So, now, they see that I got all the cars. I got all the cars out there. Got like 8, 9 cars, 10 cars out there. I introduced, K-Slay to my artists, Platinum. So they see all the cars out there. Sub-Zero's not only, filming, the behind the scenes, footage for K-Slay and K-Slay's magazine. K-Slay's gonna interview me, of course. Plus Sub-Zero gonna put some of the footage on his DVD. Show, that's gonna be big, to not only be in Street Step magazine, but Sub-Zero gonna put me on his DVD that got coming out. And it was like a special DVD, Sub-Zero said it's gonna be Sub-Zero versus DJ Joe Pro. DJ Joe Pro and Sub-Zero are known for having strippers and models, So, cool. So that's when K-Slay said, yeah, we're gonna take pictures of you. Ask you a couple questions. He said, I got Regan K, here with me. She's gonna ask you the sexual questions, K-Slay was like, I ain't no fruitcake or none of that, So he said, that's why I got Regan K here, to ask you the sexual questions. And she also here, to be in some of the pictures with you, because if you notice, in Street Step magazine, the rappers, or whoever, will always take pictures with K-Slay's model. So he said, yeah, I also got Regan K here to take some pictures with you, so that way, you could have, a model with you. I said, well, respectfully, I got my girl. I think, I said, I'd rather have my girl take the pictures with me. So that's when I motioned for my girl to get out the car. My girl, Vanity Thick. So, at first, K-Slay was kind of taken back because, Regan K is bad, dark-skinned joint, fat-ass, cute face. But I said my girl's a little unique, she's a little different. So when I told Vanity Thick to get out the car, Sub-Zero already got the camera rolling, so when, Vanity Thick get out the car, I think they was shocked because they looking at this woman, she got the Asian face because her father's Korean. And then they looking at the body, her mother's black. So when they seen the Korean face, the Asian face, and the body with the fat ass, they said, whoa, They was in shock. So Sub-Zero like, oh my God, he got the camera, he filming. He was like, yo, who's this? So that's when I said, yeah, this is my girl, Vanity Thick. K-Slay was like, how you doing, sweetheart? He was like, where you from? And then that's when she said, she was born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. So they was like, what do you miss with? She said her father is Korean and her mother's black. And then that's when I said, yeah, I was like, that's why she got the, as you can see, she got the Asian features in the face. But I was like, she get the body from her mother who's black. And then that's when I turned her around. They saw that ass, K-Slay. And Sub-Zero said, oh my God, they went crazy. They was like, yeah, definitely. He was like, yeah, take pictures with her too. So they was like, we want you to take pictures with her. The cars, Regan K gonna interview. And Regan K was even like, God then. She was like, can I, she asked Vanity, can she grab it? She was like, yeah, so she grabbed him Vanity's butt. She's like, God damn. So Sub-Zero was like, yo, this is for my DVD. He was like, hold on. He was like, get with her. So Regan K and Vanity, they taking pictures together, standing next to each other. Sub-Zero asking certain questions, boom. So now we start the interview. K-Slay asking me some questions, about, how I came up in New York and, how did I make it to Dallas, how I wound up out there. I tried, I ain't talk too much, about the street shit. And then, I showed them a few of the cars, I played a song or two from Platinum. Platinum came through, talked a little shit, in the interview, about how we get money, not too much on street shit. Played a couple songs, Platinum did a verse real quick, Sub-Zero's filming all this, also behind the scenes, and he gonna use some of this for his DVD. And then, I took pictures with me and all my cars, motorcycles, of course I had my jewelry on, dressed up, you know what I mean, fly. Took pictures with Vanity Thick, my girl, you know what I mean. My girl at the time, chick I was fucking at the time, Vanity Thick, who's Korean and black. I took pictures of her, you know what I mean. Took pictures of her, whatever. So boom. So Kingsley was like, yo man, he was like, that was dope, you know what I mean. Plus, Regan K, you know what I mean, the chick that was with Kingsley asked me certain sexual questions for the magazine. I went in, you know what I mean, I talked about how, I love eating pussy, I love eating ass, I love fucking, you know what I mean. She asked me, how big my dick was, you know what I mean. I told her, you know what I mean, I'm like, I'm a strong 9 inches, you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Told her how, I used to do porn, but, porn was fun, and all that, told him that's how I met, Diddy and Cassie or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They was like, they was kind of like in shock, like what? So I'm like, told them about certain female, rappers I done got with. Told them about the incident with Fossey Brown and, you know what I mean? Like I was, doing my thing, I went in sexually, you know what I mean? And that's when, Weekend K, being curious, was asking me certain things about, the sexual stuff and how he's going in, how we going in more on the sexual questions than the regular, questions that Kingsley asked, you know what I mean? Because, not only is, a woman asking me these questions, I don't mind, talking shit because I can back it up, you know what I mean? So, Sub-Zero getting all this on camera. Boom. Alright, so cool. So now, Slay tells me, yo, dope interview. He was like, get interview and your picture's gonna be in the next, issue of Straight Step magazine. Bun B's gonna be on the cover. That's gonna be big. And Sub-Zero said, yeah, yo, I'm gonna use some of this footage with you and your girl Vanity and with Regan K or whatever. It's some of the behind the scenes and you showing the cars. These are like your artist platinum. He said, I'm gonna put that song on my DVD. He said, I'm gonna hook it up. He said, my DVD gonna be big. You know what I mean? This edition, this volume, of Sub-Zero DVD's gonna be big because it's gonna have me and Joe Pro, DJ Joe Pro. And it's gonna be a lot of strippers and models, So I'm like, alright, cool. So that was the end of that. So now I wanna say like maybe like a week or two, the Sub-Zero DVD comes out first because Sub-Zero's quit. Sub-Zero puts out the DVD. It's all over. So it's all over the place, state to state. So Sub-Zero, gets in contact with me. He was like, yo, the DVD's out. So I'm like, so he told me what stores. It was in Dallas. I went and bought a whole bunch of copies. Sub-Zero, personally sent me, a couple copies. He sent me maybe 400, 500 copies. You know what I mean? I took those, spread those out through the hood. You know what I mean? Went to different, even went to the local stores, put them in there. You know what I mean? You help my nigga Sub out, right? So now the DVD's bubbling. All throughout the South, the DVD's bubbling. You know what I mean? Because DJ Joe Pro was on the cover with Sub-Zero. And they all had all these girls, and I'm on that DVD, with Regan K. And, Vanity Thick, my girl. Talking shit, showing cars to girls, money. So now that DVD circulating. So now a month later, Straight Step magazine come out with Bun B on the cover. I'm in the magazine, with my picture in there. Interview, you know what I mean? With me talking shit in there, talking about how I'm getting money. And then of course the part where Regan K interviews me about sex and, I'm talking about eating pussy and how I fuck bitches good and, certain female artists I done got with. You know what I mean? Not too much on the street shit. So all that comes out, boom, so now I'm on this DVD, and I'm in this magazine. So now shit is bubbling a little bit. Now I got a lot of DMs from, ladies and shit. Mad, I was getting DMs here and there before, but now, shit was flooded. I was getting so many DMs from women that it was crazy, you know what I mean? I would get DMs from women like crazy. I would get Facebook messenger calls from women, you know what I mean? Sometimes they'd be naked. So it was getting hectic, right? Now this is how I knew the magazine and the DVD really was getting me popping in the streets. So one day, I'm chilling, with my niggas, I'm with Platinum Flame and the rest of the crew, we chilling. Hustling where we be at. Store right there, we cool with the store owner. You know what I mean? This girl pulls up in a car, she gets out, bad, bad load, brown skin joint, big ass titties, fat ass, thick thighs. I mean, curvy like a motherfucker, like body stacked, you know what I'm saying? So, like, soon as she got out the car, all the niggas that's with me, like, God damn, like, who that? So she gets out the car, and she's walking, she got on this, like, this spandex type dress, you know what I mean? You could tell she got no panties on, no bra, titties, ass, hips, thighs, cute ass face, she got these sunglasses on, and she got on, like, some slippers, some, flip-flops, toes, darn. And she just walking, you could kind of tell she's like a stripper or whatever. So she's walking through, of course, everybody trying to holler at her. I'm just standing there, So when she about to walk into the store, she sees me. She's like, yo, she pulled her glasses down. She was like, ain't you that dude, Duffle Bag Tony or whatever? I'm like, yeah, what's up? She was like, yeah, I saw you on the Sub-Zero DVD. And, the, Trace that magazine, she was like, yo, you was talking a lot of shit. So then, she was about to go in the store, but she let the door though, so she started talking to me. She was like, yeah, you was talking a lot of shit that you do this, do that. She was like, you really be doing that? Me asking me certain sexual questions, I was like, well, you gotta find out. And so she was like, yeah, she was like, how do I find out? And then I'm like, oh shit. I was like, we can get it in. I was like, why you? I was like, what you up here for? She was like, she came to buy candy for her kids. She don't live too far from the store. So I was like, yeah, I was like, okay. I'm like, so what's your name? And then she, kind of pulled her skirt up, and she pointed to her tattoo on her thigh, said Luscious, with like a tongue in a cherry, going in, sitting on the tongue. It said Luscious. I'm like, okay. She was like, is she a dancer or whatever? I'm like, okay. And I'm just looking at that body. I'm like, damn. So she was like, so what's up? She was like, is you really like, because she was like, all right. She was like, I heard you got a big dick or whatever. I laughed. I was like, well, you gotta find out. She said, how can I find out? I was like, well, shit. I was like, that's your call. Let's go around the corner. I'm just talking shit. She's like, all right. I'm like, I was like, you playing? She's like, so I said, I was like, hold on, give me a minute. So I ran in the store to the, to the counter. I know the owner and the workers back there. I told him, yo, pass me a box of Magnums, a small box of Magnums. They throw me the Magnums. I throw, the money on the counter. I allow me back. So I'm like, come on. So I grabbed her hand. We walk into a car. So everybody like, yo, they like, tell me where you going. I was like, I'll be back. They're like, yo, shit, like this. So they all laughing and shit. So we get in the car. I told her to go around the corner, park up. So, I get in the back seat. She get in the back seat. I was like, so, yeah, I was like, so what do you want to know? So that's when she started unzipping my pants and shit. Pulling my dick out, her eyes got big, because at this point I'm already hard. She's like, so she started, topping me off. Boom, 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 right? She topping me off, you know what I mean? Slurping, burping, all that. You know what I mean? So boom, I put, I lay her back, eating the pussy, doom, boom, eating the pussy, flip her over, put my face all in the ass, sucking that clit from the back, tongue in the ass, freaking out. So I put the condom on, boom, start banging out, boom, bang out in the back seat, banging out, making her cum squirt, all that, banging out. I'm tearing her ass up. So boom. So I was like, so after we done, and I'm pulling up my pants, and she wiping off, because she got baby wipes in the car. I was like, yeah, you believe me now? And then she breathed heavy like, shit, nigga. She was like, fuck. She was like, then. I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah, man. So we exchanged numbers, and that's when she went. She drove me back, around the corner. And then she went in the store, got candy for her baby and shit. She walking all like, kind of like slow, like her legs is heavy, so, got her number and shit. And then, she left, and then Platinum was like, yo, what the fuck, Platinum hype? I'm like, yo, at that interview and that DVD shit is paying off. I like, not only I'm getting DM, but shit now, chicks is approaching me in the street. I'm like, yo, it's mad love out here. So we hype. So the next day, I meet up with the wise man. I spoke about the wise man. light-skinned wise who also from New York, but he in Dallas now. I will always get advice from him, and I will work out with him. In the mornings in the park, so I meet up with the wise man. You know what I mean? They're better known as light-skinned wise. You know what I mean? So I meet up with the wise man. I'm telling him how much love I'm getting. You know what I mean? Ladies DMing me like crazy. You know what I mean? I told him what happened at the corner store. How the girl approached me. You know what I'm saying? I knocked it down in the car. So he listening. And he was like, that's cool. You're getting a lot of love. But he said, you do know, with love come hate. You know what I mean? So he said, being that now you got, everyone's attention because you're not only in the magazine, but you on the DVD. Because, Light Skin Wise got, younger sons and shit that's in their 20s. Even though Light Skin Wise is in his late 50s going into his 60s. He's hit to the game, you know what I mean? So he seen me in the magazine, he seen me on the DVD. He was like, yo, but keep in mind with all this love you getting, best believe it's someone out there that hates you. He was like, keep your head on a swivel and don't get too caught up in the hype. He was like, that's how a lot of motherfuckers get caught up. You know what I mean? Because they see the lights and shit, they forget about the hate. You know what I mean? He said, you see Pac and Big and Pop Smoke, and he was like, whoever you wanted meant to. You see a lot of them niggas in here because they got caught up in the hype and the lights and the glamour. He said, he's like, the difference between you, Tony, and them niggas, you're not a rapper, you a street nigga. He was like, stay focused, my boy. He was like, don't get too caught up, with the hype. Because he's like, even though, a lot of them chicks probably do got love for you, some of them chicks might want to set you up. He was like, remember, there's a lot of so-called money Myers. That's what they call, like, the setup chicks out in Dallas. It's like it's a lot of Money Myers, Money Meyer was a song that Mo3, had, y'all know this if y'all listening by now. So I'm like, yeah, true. I'm like, no doubt, wise man, no doubt, wise. So we worked out, we finish up, boom. So now I'm in my car. I get a call from 88, Queen 88. Queen 88 like, yo, she was like, what a Rockstar. So I'm like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, nah, you a rock star now, you popular. She was like, well, my, homegirls is asking about you. She said she went to get her hair done, and she was like, that's all chicks was talking about was the DVD and the magazine and all that shit I was talking, and they know that me and you, messed around here and there. They wanted to know what's true. She was like, yeah, she told him that was true, that, I slim dick good, eat pussy good, So I started laughing. She was like, yo, she said, we need to take some of this popularity that you got right now from the Street Stuff magazine and all that. She said, we need to parlay that into some money. I'm like, true, I'm always down to get $1. She was like, I was thinking. She was like, she said she wanted to throw a twerkathon. She want to give a twerkathon. She want to have it in a club. She was like, let's rent out a club. You know what I mean? We're going to have a twerkathon with a whole bunch of strippers. And she said, I want you to host it. You know what I mean? She was like, she said Rainwater could be like a promoter and a host, but you going to be the main host. And she said, we're going to have a twerkathon where the winner wins like $3K. You know what I mean? We're going to give $3K, $3,000 away. I said, well, shit, I'm going to put an extra $2K, up for the winner. So that's going to be $5K, but we're going to say it's $3K for now. And we're going to mention at the party that I'm giving away $2K. That way it gives more hype. So she said, cool. So she said that, she know mad strippers and shit. And that, she wanna, give a twerkathon. She want me to host it. I'm like, cool. So I'm like, well, where you gonna have it at? Farrago Club? She said, nah, she wanna have it in a bigger club. So she said she was thinking about Temptations. So I'm like, well, cool. I'm like, we'll see, how we can go about renting out Temptations or whatever, or having it at Temptations. Get back at me. She said, cool. So I get off the phone with 88. So of course now me and 88, we setting up for the twerkathon. You know what I mean? Cool. So we get the green light for the club Temptations. Temptations, was a strip club in Dallas. I think they shut it down now. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They shut Club Temptations down, but, anyway, so we get the green light for, Temptations, so we gonna have a twerkathon. So we put together the flyer, you know what I mean, with me on the, on the flyer. Rainwater, you know what I mean, on the flyer. Plus, his production company, 88 Production Company. 88's on the flyer. Me and her on the flyer. Bunch of strippers on the flyer. You know, we also, we told him we having, the strippathon on, such and such a date. You know what I mean? Which was April 22nd, my birthday. You know what I mean? So, April 22nd, you know what I mean? We having a strippathon, at Temptations. Twerkathon, twerkathon. For, the winner wins $3,000, 3K. So, not only we had, we gonna have the twerkathon where they're gonna win 3K, but, it's gonna be mad strippers, over 25 strippers, you know what I mean? Cause, not only 88 know a lot of strippers, I know a lot of strippers. Plus, my nigga Hollywood Uno, head holes and strippers and, Rainwater new strippers. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be lit. It was gonna be at least over 25, 30 to 40 strippers at this party, you know what I mean? So, and plus, like I said, I was recently in the Street Study magazine and on a DVD, Sub-Zero DVD. So, it's gonna be lit, So I got on Instagram, I invited, you know what I mean, bunch of girls that was in my DM that said they want to meet me. I said, well, come down to the twerkathon. My girl, 88's having a twerkathon. Winner wins 3K. Plus, it's going to be bottles, models, strippers, all that. So, I had mad chicks coming. Plus, we got the strippers coming. Hollywood Uno, how he do. He just bringing all his hoes. I hit up Sub-Zero. I invited him, so he can capture the footage on camera. He gonna have a couple models with him. He's coming down with like 4 or 5 models, And I got contact with Regan K. So Regan K agreed to come down. You know what I mean? K Slay, I think was busy at the time. Plus, K Slay, you gotta pay K Slay to come out. It costs a lot of money to get K Slay to come out. You know what I mean? R.I.P. to the legend K Slay once again. So, we got, all these people coming out. And I also invited my nigga Mill Millions, Mill Millions, street nigga from Philly, plus, artist, you know what I mean? So, he's a street nigga / artist. He just came home from jail, so I invited Mill Millions down, so cool. So now, I went, right before, the twerkathon, event with 88. I went and got the Porsche 911 Turbo S. You know what I mean? I went and, copped the red one. You know what I mean? Porsche 911 Turbo S. Plus, already had, the red Ferrari. So boom, so my nigga Mill Millions come down. Regan K come down. You know what I mean? Of course, I got my girl Vanity Thick, you know what I mean? My Korean and black chick. So now everything's in place. We about to stunt. So now it's the night of the twerkathon. So now, we got all the cars, all my niggas, not crew. They got all the cars out. So now, I'm in the new car that I just purchased, the Porsche, Turbo S. I'm in that, what I mean, with Vanity Thick. My nigga Mill Millions, he's driving, he driving my red Ferrari because, he flew in, so he driving my red Ferrari. And Regan K's in the passenger seat with him. So now, boom, we hit the highway on our way to club. Temptations, Platinum Flame, and all them gonna meet us there. So now, me and Vanity, we in the new Porsche, the Turbo S. We driving. My nigga Mill Millions, he's in the Ferrari. You know what I mean? With Regan K, so we driving. Regan K's in the passenger seat. She got her cell phone. She's filming. Vanity, she's filming on her phone. So me and, Mill Millions, we talking shit. Mill Millions like, yo, he was like, I bet you motherfucking 3 stacks, nigga. That this Ferrari's faster than that Porsche. I'm talking shit. I'm like, you niggas, I'm like, what you want to do? So, we talking shit, you know what I mean? Regan K, she's filming on her phone. fuck it, Vanley fit with her phone, so we talking, so we like, nigga, let's go. So we racing on the highway, racing, we speeding on the highway. Boom, boom, we racing and shit. So that's when the millions, he was like, yo, so he said on his camera, cause we later gave the footage to, Sub-Zero. He said, yo, it ain't the car, it's the driver. So, you know what I mean? He was like, you niggas better bet on black, you heard me? So we racing this shit, we racing. Somehow some cars is in my way. Millions, he goes around, he like, bye-bye. He went past me, I'm like, motherfucker. So, you know what I mean? He beat us to the club and shit. So when I get there, millions is laughing. He was like, I told you, nigga, ain't the car, it's the driver, nigga. So, but before that, though, when I pull in, in the Porsche. Soon as I step out, cause, I had on like this fly-ass motherfucking leather jacket, no shirt, showing the abs and shit. Cheery, and I step out. As soon as I step out, I felt like motherfucking Chris Brown or something, the way, the bitches was whispering and listening, and whispering and, got their phones out, Vanity, she gets out, once again, getting that attention from the, having the Asian and the Korean features in the face, but when she got all the way out in that ass, they like got that, and they could tell that that ass was hers. It wasn't like fake. It didn't have that hard basketball look, So we just grabbing everybody's attention. So now, I'm with the rest of the crew, Platinum them out there. So now everybody's seeing the cars, what I mean? They see the Ferrari, they see the Porsche. They see my nigga Platinum got the Corvette. They see my nigga Fling got the Range Rover. My other man, what I mean? He got the motherfucking Bentley out there. My other nigga, he pulled up Rolls Royce, so he see all the people seeing the cars. Sub-Zero, he's already out there with his girls. So I'm like, Sub, I show Sub love. He got the camera on me. You know what I mean? He had his girls stand around me. You know what I mean? I'm talking shit. I did a couple drops with his DVD. So I'm like, yo, let's go in. So, me and my nigga Millions, Regan K, Vanity Fit, Platinum Flame, a few of the rest of the crew, Sub-Zero, his girls. We all go in to the club. We go into Temptations. It's lit in there. 88 got this whole shit package. Wall to wall fucking bitches, Cause she made sure to not only have a lot of girls in there, but she made sure the women got in first, So we in there, mad bitches everywhere, So it's lit, She, 88 hired, the nigga Buddy Lee, the DJ. So it's lit. So we in the club, we lit. So we like, yo, man. I was like, I don't drink, but buy all the bottles. So we got all the bottles coming through, So we ordering all the bottles, we bought out the whole bar, no bottles left. We bought up all the motherfucking Don Julio, Cristal, whatever the bitches want, we bought all that shit, we ain't fuck with that Ciroc, no Diddy, So the only thing they had left at the bar was probably like Hennessy, Ciroc, Moet, shit like that, but all the Cristal at the Don Julio and all that shit, nigga, all that shit. So we had so many chicks coming through with the sparklers and the bottles, nigga. It looked like the 4th of July, Plus, they had Happy Birthday Tony on the thing and shit, Duffle Bag Tony, they had Duffle Bag Tony on a sign, my name, they holding it up and shit. All the girls, with us, they drinking and shit. So now 88 calls me to the stage, they call me to the DJ booth. So now 88's on stage first, and she, when she called me out, yo, when I tell you the chicks went crazy, they went, I felt like Usher when I stepped on that stage, my nigga, when I stepped on the stage, ladies just screaming, they taking my, they was flashing so many pictures, good thing I had sunglasses on, they flashing pictures, Of course, like I said, my abs and shit is showing, cause I'm, your boy on the workout tip. Ladies is going crazy, so 88 telling them, calm down, they screaming and shit. Trying to get my attention, the few of the ladies in the front, I shook their hand, they damn near pulled me off the stage, the bouncers had to hold them back. So we like, yeah, we're gonna do the twerkathon. So, the ladies, they twerking and shit, doing their thing and shit, Plus I said, yo, we got 3K on the line, but I'm gonna add 2K, so it's gonna be 5, they really requested the ladies was going in, for that 5K or whatever. Boom. So now, as the party going on, we bored out the whole bar, you know what I mean? Now, remember, my nigga Wise told me, he said, with the love come hate, but I ain't gonna lie, I kinda got caught up in, in the hype of everything. So I'm thinking everything is all love. Not knowing that it was this bitch ass nigga named Sauce the Boss that was there, that was hating cause someone later on told me that this nigga Sauce, Sauce the Boss or whatever, tried to order some bottles and they told him, well, we ain't got no bottles left. We ain't got none of this or none of that left. We only got this kind of liquor left. And he was like, why? He was like, cause, the nigga Duffle Bag Tony bought up all the bottles. And then somebody that was there that know who told me later that he was like, man, that motherfucker is like, that nigga ain't even from out here, nigga. It was like this old New York ass nigga. They was like, wow, just cause he been in the magazine. And so they're like, man, fuck this nigga, don't rap, he don't do shit with the talking mad shit about me. But I ain't noticed at the time. So boom, so now, party winding down. We all in the parking lot, everybody's in the front of Temptations in the parking lot. So of course, Sub-Zero is getting he's getting the footage, he got the models around twerking. Vanity out there, Regan K out there, my nigga Mill Millions, he talking shit, how Mill Millions always talk shit, counting money. I'm standing with him, I'm counting money up, who we going, we going stack for stack, counting money, counting money, counting money. So now, this nigga Sauce the Boss, it's like him and like 4 niggas, he come over, he was like, yo man, we was like, why niggas out here acting like they the only ones getting money? So that's when, everybody got quiet, and I'm like, what? He was like, why niggas, acting like they the only ones getting money? I was like, yo, Playboy. I was like, it's all love, man. What's good with you? So, he's talking a little shit, but I'm trying to calm him down, cause, it's love, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to calm him down, but, you could tell this nigga, he had a lot of hatred in his heart. Plus, not only the hatred, I could, kind of smell the liquor on him, so I could tell he had a little too much to drink. I said, my man, I think you had a little too much to drink. He was like, nah, nigga. He was like, you ain't the only one getting money out here, nigga. What the fuck, you know what I mean? So he talking shit. So then this nigga takes, he took out some money. He pulled out a big ass stack. I ain't gonna front. He pulled out a big ass stack of money, and he threw that shit at me. I'm like, what the? So when he threw that shit, I just instantly, my hand just flew. My shit flew like Bruce Lee, like Mayweather. My shit just boom, punched. As soon as he threw that money in my face, boom, I punched the nigga in his face. Boom. So now, it's now niggas is kind of fighting to when his mans pulled the gun. So then that's when my man pushed me out the way, and then Flame, he pulled out Platinum pull out. So now boom, so now Platinum and Flame, and the nigga Sauce the Boss, homeboy, they shooting, boom boom. So now everybody scattered, shooting. So now, Sauce the Boss homie is shooting, but he got 2 niggas trying to shoot at him, so, he's overpowered. Platinum, him being a little tipsy, a little drunk, he makes a mistake and shoots a girl in the leg. The girl screams, ah. She was like, damn, fuck. She was like, I'm hit. The girl's, screaming she hit, that she shot in the leg. So I'm like, fuck, because I seen Platinum when he made that mistake and shot the girl in the leg. So now, Flame is letting off. Boom, 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 boom. Flame letting off. Boom, 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 boom. So Sauce is trying to run. Flame catches the nigga in his ass. Boom. So the nigga, Sauce gets shot in his ass. Boom. His other homeboy that had the gun ran. So now, Sauce is running. So now everybody scattered. We get in the cars and shit. Everybody get the fuck up out of here. But Sauce is running. It was some police officers or like a blue suit officer that wasn't too far that heard the shots. He pulls up. He sees Sauce running. He gets out. He grabs Sauce, and then he's like, yo, what you running for, my man? And he was like, nothing. So he noticed that Sauce is bleeding. He was like, why are you bleeding? So, when his partner gets out the car and they grab his Sauce, they noticed he had 2 guns on him. He was like, so they arrested him right away. He was like, what you running for? He was like, I ain't do nothing. So that's when they arrested Sauce. Sauce the Boss, they arrested him. But his man got away, caused me, Platinum Flame, we get out the way. So now, they're investigating this shooting. This girl done got shot in the leg. So, fuck. So now, Farrago like, yo, man, He was like, he heard about the shooting, because Farrago hears about everything. He said, yo, I heard about the shooting. He was like, that he knows the owners at Temptations, you know what I mean? And he said that he was against his daughter having a twerkathon, because he know how niggas act, but he said he know the owners over there. He said they willing to pull the tapes, you know what I mean? He was like, they just, they want a couple, couple dollars or whatever, you know what I mean? He was like, send like 25K over there. And, they pull the tapes and we ain't gotta worry about the tapes. So I'm like, fuck. I'm like, alright. So I had 88 go. Take the money, give the, give the owner of Temptations the 25K they gave us the tapes. So we ain't gotta worry about them pulling the cameras or whatever. The only thing is it's witness that got shot, good platinum shot her by mistake. Cause now the nigga sauced the boss. He got arrested for the 2 pistols, even though he got shot in his ass. He got arrested for the 2 pistols, so now he claiming Platinum shot him when Platinum didn't shoot him. You know what I mean? Remember, Platinum made the mistake and shot the girl in the leg. Flame shot, sauced the boss, but he's blaming Platinum. So they arrest Platinum. But the only witness they got is this nigga sauced the boss, saying that Platinum shot him. But we pulled the tapes, so they don't have the tapes. So Farrago said, well, the only witness they got is Sauce the Boss, and, he's not a credible witness because not only he's on probation, he got caught with 2 pistols, but he's saying that Platinum did it, so he was like, our only, option is to see what that girl is gonna say. So I ain't take no chances. I said, well, I'm gonna go visit the girl in the hospital to see where her head is at to make it. And, Farrago told me, well, that's a big, chance you taking, tampering with a witness, but he's like, hey, do what you feel is best. I'm like, alright, so I told 88 to try to, gather some information, try to find out who the chick is, what's her name, and what hospital she stay at. So 88 finds out what hospital the girl's staying at, and her name, she's in the hospital. Her name is Kenya Lindsay. Kenya Lindsay. You know what I mean? So I go to the hospital, you know what I mean? I asked about her, Kenya Lindsay. I wanted to visit her, so I went and visited her. And as soon as I walked in, it's this, dark-skinned chick with some big-ass lips, you know what I mean? Dark-skinned, big-ass lips, wasn't the cutest or the prettiest girl, but she had some big lips that should grab my attention. You know what I mean? So, she automatically smiled. And she was like, yo, you on Duffle Bag Tony? I'm like, yeah. And she was like, yeah, I wanted to holler at you, but you was so busy, you had so much going on. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, but how's your leg or whatever? She was like, her leg is good. So I was like, yeah, I can, check on you. And then, somehow I asked her, did the cops ask her any questions? I was like, did you give it? And she was like, nah, she didn't give no information, but they, most likely gonna subpoena her to court. So I'm like, well, so I'm trying to, butter her up and shit. But she was like, enough about, my leg or whatever. She was like, what's up with you? She was like, I wanted to holler at you. She said, I know I ain't as thick as the girls. You mostly like, I ain't got the titties and the ass. Well, I got other things. So I'm like, other things? What you mean? And that's when she sticks her tongue out. And I'm like, whoa, she had this long-ass tongue. This is when I later found out that this Kenya Lindsay chick is Kata Tongue from Instagram. Look up Kata Tongue. Kaythe Tongue. Kata Tongue. So I'm like, whoa, long ass tongue. So when I'm like, whoa, she started laughing and smiling. She said, yeah, but I heard about you though. I was like, heard about me. That's when she reached to grab my dick. So I'm like, damn. So now, my dick hard because she grabbing my dick. And plus I just saw this tongue in these lips. Like I said, she ain't the cutest thing, but she got this long ass tongue and these big ass lips. So I'm like, yo. So that's when I pulled the curtain. Mind you, we in the hospital. She's in the room with an old lady, but the old lady in the other bed is asleep. You know what I mean? So I pulled the curtain. Boom, she giving me head. Boom, slurping, Boom, giving me nasty head. Boom. Boom, nigga bust off and shit. Boom. So now, talking to her, so, we exchanged numbers. So I said, when you get out of here, she said she'd get out of here in like a day or so. So I said, yo, I come pick you up, you know what I mean? Because now I'm trying to butter her up. So So that way she won't testify against Platinum, you know what I mean? Because, Platinum got arrested, but we bailed him out. And you already know we got the Jewish lawyer on deck, so cool. So, I pick her up from the hospital, take her home and shit. Chill with her, you know what I mean? Of course, you know what I mean? She's sucking the nigga all crazy, I'm fucking her, even with the, with the bullet in her leg, I'm fucking the shit out of her and shit. You know what I mean? Fucking her, boom. So, like maybe like couple months went by, you know what I mean? Now they gonna start trial because this nigga Sauce the Boss, he's in violation of his probation because he got caught with the 2 pistols. But he's trying to get his, he trying to cut a deal because he telling on Platinum. But, like I said, without the tapes and no witnesses, they really don't have nothing on Platinum, but they subpoenaed this chick, Kenya, you know what I mean? Which we now know as Kata Tone. They subpoenaed her as a witness, so they banking on, Kata Tone, to point Platinum out. So cool, so now, the court date comes, I pick up, Kay, you know what I mean? Kata Tone, by this time, her leg is a little better, you know what I mean? Because like I said, mad time went by, you know how they drag shit on. So by this time, her leg got better and shit, you know what I mean? She's walking with a cane, she, crutches, and now she got a little cane. So, we got to court early. Court don't start till like 8:39 a.m., you know what I mean? We got there early, so, I park up. Boom, she sucked the nigga off, slurp the nigga, sucked the nigga off crazy, you know what I mean? She sucked the nigga off so good this morning that it looked like somebody poured soap and water on me, So I had her, get the towel out the trunk, wipe off, boom. So, I pulled up to the court. She goes in. I park up in the parking lot because I ain't want us to go in together. So she goes into the court, then I come in later. So boom, now they starting the case, the trial or whatever. So now we sitting there. This bitch ass nigga Sauce the Boss, he's talking about how, he got into a little confrontation. He said Platinum's the one that shot the girl. No, he's saying Platinum the one that shot him. So they trying to say that Platinum shot the girl and him. But like I said, they don't have no weapon. They ain't got no camera footage. So they only got Sauce, who's not really a credible witness. Said he got caught with the 2 pistols and shit, and he's on parole. So they call, Kenya, aka Kata Tone, to the stand, you know what I mean? They called, when they called her to the stand, they called her by her real name, Kenya Lindsay, so she takes the stand. So, they asking questions, so they said, so the lawyer said, the man that shot you today, Kenya, is he in this courtroom today? And she said, no, I don't see him, you know what I mean? So that's when Sauce the Boss, he, you could tell, you could see he's frustrated. And they told her to repeat it. They said, do you see the man that shot you in this courtroom today? She said, no, I don't see him. You know what I mean? The whole time I'm looking at her. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. That's a good bitch, you know what I mean? So they asked her no further questions. So after that, the case started falling apart. They, like I said, they ain't had the gun. They didn't have the camera footage. And, the chick, Kenya, you know what I mean? She said Platinum's not the one that shot her. She said she don't know who shot her. She was like, she don't see the guy there today. So the case started falling apart. So eventually, they threw the case out, lack of evidence, so Platinum beats the case. But the nigga Sauce the Boss still had to go to jail because, he was on parole, got caught with the 2 pistols, whatever. But that's, basically how it went down. And, it was a crazy time, man, you know what I mean? That's how, basically 88's the one that gave me the name Tony the Rockstar, and I was living like a rock star, you know what I mean? Like, even before that, the money, the bitches, but that motherfucking, that fame, like, from, like, hip-hop and, oh, man, that shit is crazy. I can imagine what Chris Brown and them go through, but that shit was definitely fun. I ain't gonna lie, man, but like the wise man said, with love comes hate, you know what I mean? But, that was just a crazy time, what I went through and how I got the name Tony the Rockstar, you know what I mean?